I'll never forget the moment my sister called to tell me her wedding date. Not because I was happy for her, but because she said it with a smile I could hear through the phone. June 15th, she announced, her voice dripping with false innocence. I know it's the same day as yours, but the venue had a cancellation and it's the only date available for the next 2 years. You understand, right? I understood perfectly. This was war, and she had just fired the first shot. My name is Simone, and I've spent my entire life being the family disappointment. Not because I failed at anything, but because I succeeded without their help, their approval, or their outdated playbook for what a Black woman's life should look like. While my younger sister Destiny played the role of the perfect daughter, attending family dinners and church brunches, posting filtered photos with our parents every Sunday, I was building an empire they couldn't even comprehend. I started in commercial real estate right out of college. Nothing glamorous at first. I worked 80-hour weeks, lived in a studio apartment with furniture from Facebook Marketplace, and ate ramen more nights than I care to admit. But I had vision. I saw potential in neglected properties that others walked past. Historic buildings and transitioning neighborhoods. Boutique hotels that needed capital and strategy, not demolition. By 32, I owned a portfolio of 7 properties across 3 states. By 35, I expanded into luxury hospitality. My flagship property was the Grandmont, a historic hotel in our hometown that had been built in 1928. It was an architectural masterpiece that had fallen into disrepair, and I spent 3 years and $12 million restoring it to its original glory. Marble lobbies, crystal chandeliers, rooftop terraces with panoramic city views. It became the most exclusive venue in the city. But to my family, I was still just Simone, the daughter who was too busy for Sunday dinners, the sister who thought she was better than everyone because I wore designer suits to family gatherings instead of church dresses, the one who prioritized her career over finding a husband until I finally met Marcus. Marcus was everything I didn't know I needed. A trauma surgeon with hands that saved lives and a mind that challenged mine. He understood ambition because he lived it too. He understood sacrifice because he made them daily. And he understood me in ways my family never bothered to try. When we got engaged, I was genuinely excited to share the news. I thought maybe finally this would be the thing that made them see me differently. I planned an intimate engagement dinner at one of my properties, sent out formal invitations, hired a private chef. My mother arrived late, complaining about parking. My father spent the entire evening on his phone. And Destiny showed up with her boyfriend Trevor, a youth pastor at our parents' church, who had proposed to her 3 months earlier and spent the whole night talking about her wedding plans. We're thinking spring, she flashed her modest diamond ring. Something traditional, at the church of course, with a reception in the fellowship hall. Nothing too extravagant. We want to honor God, not show off. The implication was clear. I was showing off. My success was vanity. My ambition was pride. But I smiled through it. I always did. 2 months later, I send out my save the dates. June 15th, a year away. Plenty of time for everyone to plan. The venue would be the Grandmont's rooftop garden. Intimate, elegant, unforgettable. My mother's response came via text. That's quite fancy. I hope you're not going into debt for this. I owned the venue. But I didn't bother explaining. Then Destiny's call came. Same date, different story. I tried to get a different date, she insisted when I questioned her. But the Sterling Rose only had June 15th available. It's the venue of my dreams, Simone. You can't expect me to pass it up just because you picked that date first. The Sterling Rose, a historic estate on the outskirts of town. Beautiful, yes, but I happen to know it was managed by a hospitality group I had business dealings with. I also knew they had availability on at least 6 other dates that spring and summer. This wasn't about venue availability. This was about making me choose: cancel my wedding or watch my family choose hers. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I simply said, "Congratulations, Destiny. I'm sure it will be beautiful." The silence on the other end told me she had expected more of a fight. 3 days later, my mother called. "Simone, we need to talk about the situation with the weddings." "What situation, Mama?" "You know what situation. Both of you getting married on the same day. It's putting your father and me in an impossible position." I sent out my save the dates first. Destiny chose this date knowing it was already taken. She said the venue only had that date available. "And you believe that?" My mother's sigh was heavy with the weight of years of choosing my sister over me. "Simone, you're the strong one. You've always been able to handle things on your own. Destiny needs us more. She's more sensitive. This wedding means everything to her, and mine doesn't mean anything to me." "That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you have resources. You can change your date, move your venue, do something else. Destiny doesn't have those options." There it was, the truth I had known my entire life, finally spoken out loud. I was successful, so I didn't deserve support. I was strong, so I didn't deserve gentleness. I had built something from nothing, so I should just give up what was mine to make room for someone who had never had to fight for anything. "I understand, Mama," I said quietly. "You've made your choice very clear. Don't be dramatic, Simone. We're not choosing. We're just saying that it would be easier if you were the one to compromise." Noted. I hung up, and I made my own choice. I didn't cancel my wedding. I didn't change my date. I didn't reach out to my sister to negotiate or to my parents to plead. I simply continued with my plans as if nothing had happened. Marcus noticed the shift in me. "Are you okay?" he asked. One evening as we reviewed seating charts. "I'm perfect," I told him, and I meant it. Because while my family was planning Destiny's dream wedding, I was making a few plans of my own. The Sterling Rose, it turned out, was owned by Grandview Hospitality Group, a company I had been in acquisition talks with for 8 months. They owned a dozen historic properties across the region, but they were over-leveraged and struggling with management. I had been considering purchasing their portfolio, but the timing hadn't quite been right until now. I called my attorney. I called my financial advisors. I reviewed every document, every clause, every detail. And then I made an offer Grandview couldn't refuse: $48 million for their entire portfolio, including the Sterling Rose. The deal closed 6 weeks before the wedding. My sister had no idea. Nobody did. The property continued operating under the same management, the same name, the same booking system, but the deed had my name on it. I didn't tell Destiny. I didn't gloat to my parents. I simply let them continue planning their perfect day at their perfect venue, completely unaware that every deposit, every vendor fee, every detail was ultimately being paid to me. The week before the wedding, my mother called again. "We've been seating at Destiny's wedding," she said. "We saved you and Marcus seats at the family table. We thought maybe you could come for part of the reception, make an appearance, show that there's no hard feelings. You want me to attend my sister's wedding on the same day as my own? It would mean a lot to Destiny and to us. It would show maturity." I could have exploded. I could have screamed every truth I had swallowed for 36 years, but I didn't. "I'll think about it," I said. And I did think about it, very carefully. June 15th arrived exactly as planned. The weather was perfect. 78 degrees, clear skies, gentle breeze. My wedding was scheduled for 6 in the evening on the Grandmont. Destiny's
was at 2 in the afternoon at the Sterling Rose, followed by a reception in their grand ballroom. I spent the morning getting ready with my bridesmaids, real friends, women who had supported my dreams, celebrated my wins, and held me through my losses, not one family member among them. Marcus and I had decided to do a first look at 4 in the afternoon, private, intimate, just us and our photographer. He cried when he saw me in my dress, not because I looked beautiful, though he said I did, but because he knew what this day cost me, and he knew I was choosing him anyway. "Are you sure about tonight?" he asked, holding my hands. "We can still change the plan." "I've never been more sure of anything," I told him. At 5:30, I got in my car, not to go to my own venue, but to drive 15 minutes across town to the Sterling Rose. My sister's reception was in full swing when I arrived. I could hear the music from the parking lot. The ballroom was decorated exactly as I had seen in the planning documents that crossed my desk. Blush pink and gold, roses everywhere. My parents sat at the head table, my mother in a lavender mother of the bride dress she had sent me photos of weeks ago, my father in a suit I recognized from his closet. Destiny was radiant. I could see her through the windows, dancing with Trevor, surrounded by 200 guests who had all chosen to be there instead of at my wedding. I walked through the service entrance, not as a guest, as an owner. The venue manager, Patricia, met me in the hallway. She was one of the few people who knew about the acquisition. "Miss Reeves," she said, using my professional name. "Everything is ready. Thank you, Patricia. Give me 5 minutes, then make the announcement." I changed in the manager's office, out of my wedding dress and into a tailored cream pantsuit. Elegant, powerful, understated. I touched up my makeup, checked my reflection, and walked toward the ballroom. Patricia entered first. The music stopped. She approached the microphone at the front of the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please. We have a very special guest this evening. The new owner of the Sterling Rose would like to say a few words and offer a toast to the happy couple." I watched my sister's face from the doorway. Confusion first, then curiosity. The guests turned, looking for this mysterious new owner. I stepped into the light.
My mother gasped. My father's fork clattered against his plate. Destiny's face went from confused to pale to something close to horror. I walked to the front of the room with the confidence of someone who owned not just the building, but the entire moment. "Good evening, everyone," I said, my voice steady. "For those who don't know me, my name is Simone Reeves. I'm the bride's sister. And as of 6 weeks ago, I'm also the owner of this beautiful venue." The silence was deafening. "I want to personally welcome you all to the Sterling Rose. When my sister booked this venue for her special day, I thought it was important that everything be perfect for her. So I made sure that every detail, every request, every special accommodation she asked for was handled with the utmost care." I could see Destiny shaking. Trevor had his arm around her, but he looked just as confused as everyone else. I also wanted to make sure she got the best possible rate, so I personally approved a 30% discount on the entire package. Consider it my wedding gift. My mother stood up. "Simone, what are you doing?" "I'm toasting my sister, Mama. Please, sit." She did. She had no choice. Not here, not in front of 200 witnesses. I raised the champagne glass Patricia had handed me. "To Destiny. May your marriage be filled with all the support, grace, and unconditional love that you've always received. May you never have to wonder whether you're valued, whether you're chosen, whether you're enough. May you always have someone making accommodations for you, giving you discounts, bending over backwards to ensure your happiness." I paused, letting the words settle. "And may you someday understand what it costs when someone else has to shrink themselves to make room for your comfort." I took a sip, set down the glass, and turned to leave. "Simone, wait." Destiny's voice cracked across the ballroom. I stopped, turned, waited. She stood there, in her blush pink dress, mascara starting to run.
You did this to humiliate me on my wedding day. No, Destiny. You did this. When you deliberately booked your wedding the same day as mine, knowing our parents would choose you, knowing I would be erased. Again, I didn't humiliate you. I simply let you have exactly what you wanted. A beautiful venue, a perfect wedding, at a price you could afford. You're welcome. But you own it. You let us celebrate here, knowing it was yours. Yes, because that's what strong people do, right, Mama? I looked at my mother. We handle things. We make accommodations. We don't need support because we can survive anything. Isn't that what you said? My mother had tears streaming down her face, but she said nothing.